Hey folks, this is Waylon Lewis on a Saturday morning live from Boulder, Colorado. And how's that? So we're just setting up. Luckily, no one's here in the first 5 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. And I'm here with Tessa Zimmerman.
Yes.
All right, got it right. And what did you found or create?
I founded a nonprofit called Asset Education.
Okay. And is this a financial investment firm? Asset?
No, but everyone thinks that.
I know, it sounds kind of like
Yeah, I really should change that.
No, it's great. So what does asset? Why did you choose asset, that word?
It's Tessa spelled backwards.
Oh.
A little clever marketing.
That's kind of awesome.
You're right.
Okay, cool. So let's go from that all the way to the beginning. So what was your story growing up?
So I grew up having severe panic attacks in the classroom since I was 8.
In the classroom?
In the classroom since I was 8 years old.
So like when you were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever?
Yeah, so what would happen, for example, when I was 8, my third grade teacher would hand me a writing assignment.
And did you have awful teachers? Was there some cause of this?
No, I was a really sensitive kid. And I grew up in a community where achievement was everything. It was always about being
Connecticut,
yes,
Yeah.
and outside of New York City. Everything was about achieving the next best thing.
So your parents were like sending you to like violin class and then like you just had to excel in everything kind of thing?
No, that was the funny thing. My dad's a doctor of Oriental medicine. Like complete opposite.
Totally relaxed.
Like Buddhist, really chill dude. Mom's a ballet teacher. So like not at all like really high intense people. It was just the community that I grew up in.
Your parents sound like half of the Justice League for like mindfulness. Oriental medicine and ballet teacher.
It was a great upbringing.
Right.
Tai Chi at the bus stop with dad, like,
really?
Oh, he would do that for sure.
That sounds humiliating.
It's horrible. It makes for a good story. It makes for a good story.
Did he only do that once?
Oh no! The
real...
bus would be pulling up, and I'd just see my dad doing Tai Chi, and
That is great.
Yeah, in Connecticut too. So that was really.
So after your panic attacks, which I'm sure in a classroom setting were humiliating.
Oh, absolutely.
You got to go bus home and then get picked up by a dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. But what would happen is my third grade teacher, she would hand me a writing assignment. And it wouldn't be anything intense, right? You're 8 years old. It'd be like, what did you do this weekend?
Right, so you're third grade?
Yeah, 8. And I was so afraid that I would have the wrong sentence, that I would write the wrong sentence, that I would sit and stare and start to cry, and then start to shake and just freak out.
And of course you didn't know what to do.
No, I didn't.
And did the teacher have any idea?
She would send me to the principal's office.
To have a nice talk or it's punishment?
It was kind of like both. It was so then that taught me that whatever I was feeling was bad, that I was a bad kid.
I can't deal with this. Go to the principal's office.
Exactly.
You're acting out.
Right. Something's wrong with you. I can't deal with it.
And in her defense, she had no idea what to do.
No, right.
She had to run a whole class.
She had no, that was.
And that's where asset can probably help.
Yeah, that's where that was the start of asset. And really, as I grew older, I would ask my teachers for help. I'd ask my guidance counselor when I was 12, ask her for help. And she gives me a stress ball. And it really pisses me off because I'm like, this is not an effective coping mechanism.
How old were you?
I was 12.
12, they give you a little rubber ball?
Well, yeah, they're like, this is what we think will help. This isn't going to help.
It didn't help at all?
No, I was just it made me angry because it wasn't actually
So then they're like, give her another stress ball.
Right, we don't
One
know.
for the anger.
So yeah, that was kind of the evolution. I was kind of always asking for help from my educators, but very few were in a position to help me. And because I had really great grades.
You did?
Oh yeah, I was an A student.
So you're kind of perfectionist.
Absolutely, yeah.
So how did your parents deal with all this? Did they try to introduce you to meditation or?
I mean, it's hard. I don't think a kid wants to hear from your parent, go meditate.
Totally.
It's just you're no, that sounds.
Yeah, I grew up in a Buddhist family.
Yeah.
And I probably did more times Dungeons and Dragons and Little League baseball and biking around than meditating by far.
Right. It was just I don't want to do this. I mean, we tried therapy, but I didn't really, when I was younger, I didn't really talk, I didn't want to talk about how I panicked so badly in school that I looked like a crazy person. I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And
And so kids are sort of obsessed naturally with popularity and getting along and not being embarrassed.
Right.
I mean, this sounds like a trifecta of shame and embarrassment and further stress. And
absolutely. Or I just like try to hold it together so long throughout the school day that I would come home and just like
let go.
Have like massive panic attacks.
Wow. So does this still happen at all?
Sometimes, but not to like the same degree. I think anxiety is something I live with. It's not something I'm debilitated by. It's just something I experience, and I think we all experience some level of anxiety.
For sure. But I mean, do the panic attacks still happen?
Sometimes. Recently, this past month, I've experienced more panic attacks probably than in the past 2 years.
And are they, forgive my ignorance, I hope,
No,
but you're in the zone of dumb questions.
No, you're good.
Dumb questions with Waylon.
Is that what we're going to call it?
Yeah, exactly.
Now?
Yeah. Are they caused by particular things like coming for an interview in front of 5 million Facebook fans, or are they just sort of existential?
Yeah, I think there's definitely different triggers to them, right? Like this is actually really fun for me. So for in high school or in middle school and elementary school, it was grades, right? It was that
grades.
Yeah, perfect grades.
Well, where did that obsession with, not obsession, not trying to be rude, but like where did that focus on wanting to get great grades come from? Because your parents sound pretty chill.
They were super chill. I joke my dad jokes with me that when I was in second grade, I came home and I asked my dad, "What's a Harvard?" Everyone's going there. So like that was
so
the
school culture was just
it was insane. And
was just like, we're getting the second graders to Harvard.
Right. That was kind of the attitude. And if you're not going to Harvard, you're doing something wrong.
Right, unless it's Yale or
right, like or
Princeton.
Right, like that was kind of the attitude. And so I think success always felt like something that I was never capable of achieving.
You were never good enough.
Right, and I think today that's only magnified for students now with social media and college and whatnot. It's just it's never enough, right? You're never
because of the sort of show off culture in social media.
Exactly. There's like way you're supposed to look, or the way you're supposed to act, and this is what is cool and this is what is not cool, and so you're always constantly trying to choose something that isn't really.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not a parent or a kid, so I haven't thought about that much. Like the effect of like Instagram photos where everyone's showing off the highlight of their day.
Right.
And almost never being genuine unless it's to show off how genuine they are.
Right, exactly. And so everyone feels that like something's wrong with me if I'm feeling a little different, or if I'm feeling not super happy today, like then something's wrong. And I think that's where we get it wrong, is we need to start teaching young people that emotions are normal and feeling good and feeling bad is part of the human experience. And the more we start worrying, or we need to stop worrying about what's good and what's bad and just learn that that's part of the journey. That's
like straight up Buddhism right there. So good. And Buddhism doesn't have a patent on that. That's just human wisdom. That's great. So in this talk show series, we focus on people who use their experience to be a benefit. Okay. So that's literally what you've done here. You went through these somewhat debilitating panic attacks.
Right.
And then at what point did you start thinking, how did you learn how to work with them first?
So this is where it's kind of like the pivot in the story goes.
Right. We're pivoting.
We're going to get better. So we're like kind of climbing back. I was 12 and I got offered a full scholarship to a private school.
Hey.
And it's like, this is my ticket out. And this private school was really untraditional. They brought in mindfulness and positive psychology into the school day.
So those are buzzwords. Like, what does that mean? What do they do?
So,
because everyone, Time Magazine is like, mindfulness is hot.
Absolutely. So they thought that teaching students or teaching children about how to respond to emotions rather than to react to emotions was just as important as their academics. So mindfulness coming into play about learning to be aware of what you're feeling and learning to be aware of your thoughts and your sensations without attaching yourself to them and going down that path.
I need maybe some more of that.
Yeah, right. No, we all do. And so that was part of the premise of their high school, was that we're going to teach students to do this.
And that sounds like, for most children, that sounds kind of boring. right?
Oh, I hated it.
Right.
Like we had a new high school director, and he comes in and he's like, "We're gonna do like mindfulness for a week." And I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!"
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and I so when we would do mindfulness, I would think about all the ways this sucked and why I was gonna like complain about like why we're not gonna do this ever again. Like we're just not. But it's really hard to be angry at something for so long. Like it's very hard to be angry at mindfulness.
It tires you out.
Oh yeah, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm tired of being angry at it. I'll give it a shot.
It gets boring being angry.
Right, it does. I like totally caved, and I was like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool. Like these anxious thoughts, I don't have to like go down the rabbit hole. I can watch them.
And you had done that all your life, right? That was just the path. Anxious thoughts freak out. Anxious thoughts freak out.
Exactly.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, I
don't have to participate.
So what was can we do something? Can you lead us in something?
Absolutely. So my mindfulness teacher in high school, Miss Casey, I was all about sneaky mindfulness. Is something I talk to high schoolers about a lot.
That's cool.
I'm just like, because we don't want to like, you never want to show when you're freaking out, and you also don't want to really also demonstrate when you're trying to calm yourself down, right? Like you don't want to like.
Yeah, I meditate in public sometimes. I still don't like doing it blatantly.
Right. I you have to I want to kind of like go sit somewhere.
It's weird how embarrassed I am, having meditated all my life, of meditating in public.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, like, I actually like to do it on planes because people just think I'm sleeping, and you're like,
oh, you do it with eyes closed?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, in our Buddhist tradition, our main meditation practices are eyes open,
okay.
So it's even more blatant. So you're like, you take a great posture, you're following your breath, your eyes are open, but just from far away, you just look like you're on pause and something weird happened.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah, yes. I often go to the bathroom, like if I'm just want to meditate for a bit, I just go to the bathroom and meditate, and then
See, that's good use.
Yeah.
Now we should start adding meditation rooms in.
Right, exactly. I want that.
See.
You have your diaper table, and then you have your meditation table.
Right, exactly. You got everything. But this one that she taught me that I really love, and I love teaching it to high school students, it's called finger breathing.
Okay.
And so essentially,
and we can all do it if you're watching.
Yeah, really, really easy.
So if anyone at any point has questions for Tessa, we'll get to them toward the end.
Okay.
So stick around and ask lots of questions.
So what we really like to do is you hold your left thumb with your right hand. Take an inhale. Exhale. And switch. So grab a hold of your right thumb with your left hand. Inhale. Exhale. Now your left pointer finger. Inhale. Exhale. And switch. Right pointer finger. Inhale. Exhale. Left middle finger. Inhale. Exhale. Right middle finger. Inhale. Exhale. Ring finger. Exhale. Right ring finger. Inhale. Exhale. And then left pinky. Inhale. Exhale. Right pinky. Inhale. Exhale.
Now take off your shoes. We'll do it with the toes.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's something you can teach children because it's really easy to.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of fun to.
Switch, like you have something to hold on to, so it's like tactile. And we teach high school students to do it like under, like when they're at their desk, right? You can just do it under the desk.
Oh, that's cool.
So like no one really knows you're doing mindfulness, and you can just be like sneaky about it.
Yeah, at some point we have to make mindfulness like kind of cool.
Right. And
it's definitely far from that.
Well, I think in our asset schools, like I'm starting to see like some cool bits of mindfulness.
Blatant finger.
Well, okay.
What do you call this again?
Finger breathing.
Finger breathing.
Well, like one kid, I guess, was in the hallway and yelled, like, "I need a mindfulness body scan right now!" So we're like starting to get that culture of like this is cool.
Yeah, it's like the X-Men school for what is it for advanced children?
Right.
Dr. Xavier's school for
mindfulness. So I just need to do that.
Right.
So I got the full scholarship to the private school. I'm getting like mindfulness and positive psychology, so they're teaching me about happiness and like how external things like grades aren't real like things of happiness. Like it's an internal thing that we cultivate through like gratitude and experiences.
But the danger with happiness stuff,
right,
in this, at least in the spiritual world, Elephant talks a lot about this, is you start saying happiness good, all my bad feelings of anxiety, worry, stress, bad.
Right.
And then you start further judging and shaming and pushing and suppressing your struggles, which kind of compounds the problem. And then you start like clinging to happiness desperately.
Or chasing it, right?
Right, or chasing it.
Yeah, no, and I think for me I had never really, it wasn't like happiness is something I have to chase, but like something that I can choose to be grateful. Like I can.
There's actual practices.
This to it. It wasn't like this external thing. It was like I can choose to shift how I perceive the world. And I may not be happy, right? I may not feel really happy right now, but I can choose a different lens at which I'm viewing the world, and that will hopefully maybe just change how I'm experiencing this tough time.
Right.
It might not be easy. It might not be fun, but I can change the way I look at things, and then my experience changes.
So before we get too far, for those who are watching, what's your website?
So the website for ASSET is asset-edu.org.
Okay. So now you're a child, you're 12 or 14 or whatever, and you're working more successfully with your own panic attacks, right?
Right.
And anxiety.
I mean, I'm going to a school where you're doing mindfulness as part of the school day. Like you have to, like, not that you have to do mindfulness, but like I am learning that I don't have to choose anxiety. Like for the longest time, I just thought anxiety was the only choice. And for the first time in my education experience, I'm learning that I can choose something else.
And did it work?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. So do you feel like this should be, I mean, dumb question given what you've chosen to do with your life, but do you feel like this should be available to all children in all schools everywhere?
Absolutely. I think that we need to put so first of all, I have a problem that we always call them students. They're people, right? And we forget that they are people and they are human beings. And I think we should start educating human beings to be good humans.
It's funny, in the tech community, we all talk about our readers. I always call it Elephant.
Yeah.
So it's readers because it's more human and like they're reading and they're a community.
Right.
But in the tech community, we call people users, which I hate.
Right.
It sounds like you're like just trying to keep them high or something. It's awful.
Well, that's like with students.
They're humans.
Right. Students are like robots, right? Like they learn things and they do homework and they take tests.
I see.
And there's so much more to who they are as people. Right.
They're not just here to study, and readers aren't just here to read. So now I guess we all just call everyone humans.
Right. We should just stop labeling. But that's something that I believe that we should be in our education experience shouldn't just be about math or science. I think it should be about well-being and mental health and understanding how our minds and brains work so that we're able to uncap our potential.
So this is a boring question, but basically to make that go mainstream, you have to find a way to measure it.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's the whole struggle with No Child Left Behind and all those things. They're just trying to measure student or human success in learning stuff.
Absolutely.
So if you can quantify it, okay, children are more relaxed or children are happier, then so Bhutan did the Gross National Happiness Project, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any way to measure stuff?
Absolutely. So we actually,
not that it matters, but then it demonstrates it.
Oh, but it does matter. I think it also matters in terms of being a nonprofit, right? You have to show your donors that hey, we are having these outcomes, and this is the impact we're making, and this is why we need to continue this. So ASSET has been really, really lucky. Denver Public Schools is actually really cool. They have an innovation lab.
So you're working with them? We
work with their Imaginarium, which is an innovation lab within Denver Public Schools.
Sounds cool.
It's super cool, right? It's a great name.
I want to go.
It's really fun. And so when I was in college, I won a grant from them just during my senior year, and they gave me $9,000 to kind of teach teachers how to teach their students how to cope with anxiety.
Did that stress you out?
At first, it did.
That would be
really
intimidating.
Scary. It was super
Go in
scary.
and teach a bunch of teachers. And
I'm 20.
20 at the time. Yeah.
I'm 20. I'm hi guys. I promise.
But you have your experience. So you come back. Well, this was There's this great line in About a Boy. You know that movie with Hugh Grant?
No.
Where he's like yelling at this kid is you should watch it.
Okay.
This 10-year-old is like really troubled in school, and Hugh Grant is kind of hollering at the mom, saying, "Stop doing this thing to him." And she's like, "What do you know? You don't have children." And he's like, "I was a child." Yeah.
Exactly, that was it. And we work with the Imaginarium to actually, they gave us a researcher. So we've been able to study assets impact within the classrooms we work with.
And so what is that impact?
So we have students take a mindfulness awareness scale and a perceived stress scale at the beginning and end of the program.
How does that work? They check 1 to 10 how they feel about stuff?
So this mindfulness awareness scale was developed by a professor. His name is Dr. Kirk Warren Brown. He's out of Virginia Commonwealth University. So we took this scale that he created.
And the children somehow evaluate their own self.
Right. This is definitely self-reported. This is not we're not quite there yet in research, but I do think it's
because that's self-esteem on some level. Right?
Exactly. So they take this scale, and so we the most recent study, or the one study we've done, is a 2-month study we did with 66 students, and they were 11th graders in Denver public schools between 2 schools. And we saw in 2 months, 2/3 of the students increased their mindfulness, and 50% of the students reduced their stress based off of the perceived stress scale.
Increase their mindfulness, their ability to focus and be present.
Yes.
And reduce their stress.
Yes.
I mean, you could retire right there.
Right. And
it feels so good, right?
And they wanted more of it. That was the coolest part, was 80% of the students said that they wanted their other classes to have assets curriculum. And
that's amazing. No, they were this boring, stupid stuff we have to do.
They created it. And so I think you'll appreciate this story. So this one class we worked with was this AP lit class. So super high achieving personalities, loved them, really great students.
Were you in AP lit?
Oh no, I would sit in and observe them and get to know them. So we kind of.
No, I mean when you were in school.
No, I was in AP chemistry though, but not AP lit. Trying it. But so it was funny, they were in AP Lit, they receive asset twice a week in AP Lit, they go to an AP chemistry class, and I guess it's the same group of students, and they have a test one day, and they actually boycott their test until they do a mindfulness body scan. They're like, we're not going to take this chemistry class until we do mindfulness, and the teacher didn't have the curriculum, so one of the students got up and led their class through a mindfulness body scan.
It's like a scene in a mindfulness Hollywood movie.
Right, exactly. We could recreate that.
Dead Poets Society, standing on the desk.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
We're doing mindfulness.
Wow.
So that's just a touch of the work.
And needless to say, if you can increase mindfulness and decrease stress at the age of how old are these?
They're 16.
16. That affects their whole life's path.
Right. Well, that's the point, right? If we talk about systemic change of the people in our world, I think it starts with teaching them how to be good humans and how to de-stress themselves and be mindful and aware of their experiences rather than be reactive or fearful. Be responsive.
Yeah, being reactive ruins your life.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still reactive.
It's okay,
to things. Too. I know, it's so irritating.
But it's kind of this journey of you constantly keep learning.
Yeah, I know. I've been meditating and practicing and studying my whole life, and I was just on a staff leadership retreat.
Awesome.
And we had 16-hour days. We're going over the budget. So pretty intense, but we all love each other and respect each other. So it's relatively workable. And then on the 4th day, we're nearly done, someone said something that really triggered me before I even realized what was happening. I was and I was okay. I just half ruined the whole retreat. And I didn't do anything dramatic, but it's those moments you're it's before you even know it.
Right.
Especially when you're a kid and you're full of more energy. And
the more you can know your triggers, right? So it's also teaching these young people of okay, so what triggers you? Where is that kind of crux for you? And how can we help you know that, so when you get there, you can choose a different response.
And we as a nation love to talk about mental health, particularly in times of national tragedy. Right. But I don't think we do that much about it.
No, and I think we don't teach. So one of the things that students have, or young people, we all have these responses, right? we talk about the biological stress response a lot in the classroom. So we're teaching students what is happening in their brains, right? So we're teaching them that their amygdala is alerting their body that they're under threat and like this. And so you're going to go into fight, you're going to go into flight, you're going to go into freeze. And these are how these responses manifest. But what's really cool is when you teach students that this is happening, they can say, oh, I'm in fight right now. And then what we'll do is we'll list all of our asset lesson plans, their tools. So there's about 30 tools that the teacher will teach. And we'll list these tools and they can say, oh, I'm in flight right now. I need to go do my finger breathing. And so they can choose that, like, I'm in this response, I'm going to choose something else and try an asset tool.
But if they're getting bullied, like say pushed
right
in the hallway between classes, they can't do. So what do you advise you to do in the moment?
Right. So
if there's something awful happening.
Right. If there's something awful happening, I think you can kind of proactively do it too, where you're like, I know that the hallway is like a time of stress for me.
So it's not just what you do in the moment, it's what you've done for the months before.
Right. Because I think, we want them to be proactively like practicing these tools. So it's not like, oh, something bad's going to happen. Right. Like I should do something, but it's like, oh, I'm going to start my class with a moment of mindfulness, or, oh, I'm going to start my class by having students write down 3 things they're grateful for. And then we're going to transition into academics so that students can then start to cultivate that on their own, that I can start my day like this, or I can start my lunch period, or whatever it may be, that they can start their day to be more proactive and be well.
And you wrote a book.
I did write a book.
So what was that about?
So I went to Watson University here in Boulder.
With our friend Eric Glustrom.
Good old Glusty.
Glusty.
So Eric, the premise of Watson.
Eric's been on the show.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So the premise of Watson is for social entrepreneurship, right? It's that we want to equip young people with the tools to solve tough problems.
Okay.
And we do assignments. They had an assignment which was do one thing that you think is impossible to do. Like, what is that one thing? And I was like, get a book deal. I think that's impossible. That's something that I want to do.
You thought, no way I can do that.
Yeah, I was like,
so maybe we can put the Eric Glustrom Watson University interview in the comments. Yeah.
So so that's one of our assignments. I'm 18. I'm a freshman at Watson.
Right. That seems impossible.
Right. And this seems really hard. Like I have no it's not like I have this really big blog. Everything's like stacked against me. I'd interviewed Chris Carr, who wrote like Crazy Sexy, cookbook. Right. She and I reached out to her. She was a New York Times bestselling author. I was like, how do you get there? Like, what do you do? And she had sent me this course, and then what ended up happening was a year and a half later.
She sent you what?
A course. She had done something called this Spotlight Crash Course, which was how to get there. How to get there. Uh-huh. But I ended up submitting a proposal to a small publishing company when I was 19, and I signed a book contract when I was 19.
Look at that.
That's how you do it.
Do you have your book?
I have it right here.
Yeah, let's see it.
There we go.
All right. I'm not a very good Vanna White, but look at this.
There you go.
Yeah. So folks can buy this?
Folks can buy it.
Where can you get it?
You can get it on Barnes & Nobles, Amazon.
IamTested.com is the...
Yeah.
So if you're an educator or a parent...
or a student. So what's really cool about
Or a human.
Yeah, or a human. Any one of those. What's really cool about the book is I wrote about my personal story of growing up with anxiety, but it's also the tools I used.
Right.
To overcome.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of...
There's mantras and recipes and meditations. I mean, it's kind of...
Are you vegan?
No, not entirely.
It's not a vegan brownie
But
recipe.
there is a vegan protein brownie recipe. There's totally a bunch of stuff in there.
Cool. This looks great. Well, good for you and good for the planet.
Yeah, thanks
you. Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Have we not touched on anything? We could jump into some comments if there are any.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Captain, my Captain. All right. Someone's super proud of you, Lindsay Smith.
Yeah, it's my publisher.
Oh, cool. Hey. And Lindsay, thank you for publishing her. And we'd love to excerpt the book, and we could link to the book, and a bunch of people could buy it. I'm about to interview, as I was mentioning, one of the governors for Colorado right after this, and I've interviewed her opponent, Congressman Jared Polis, and Congressman Tim Ryan is the guy who's working to get mindfulness in schools.
Okay, yeah,
so we
yeah,
got
we're
to
talking
connect.
about
He's
that.
also been on the show. We could put all those in the
Okay,
comments. But so I was researching like the size of our audience versus Denver Post, which is like basically the only paper of record making the decision on the governor candidates,
Okay.
and we're 10 times the size. So I was like, all right, this is a real show, even though we're just sitting around and, it's pretty casual.
Yeah.
All right. Jerry is going to teach this to her kids.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, this video will be live as soon as we hang up. I mean, it'll be available all the time. Feelings are normal. It's okay to feel them. I think they're quoting you. Rachel says, test props to you for taking your struggles and using them to be a benefit. I mean, that really is it. Yeah, taking your experience. I have an 8-year-old boy from Dana who lives in almost constant fear and has been diagnosed with anxiety. So what would you advise for that? I mean, this is your whole thing, but what?
Right.
I mean, that's intense to have an 8-year-old, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I was that 8-year-old, right?
Right.
Like,
you were. So what would you, if you had half an hour, you couldn't give a physical book or anything, it's like out of the Terminator.
Right.
Half an hour with your 8-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Well, I would recommend Daniel Siegel. He's like an expert in mindfulness with adolescents. Dr. Daniel Siegel, he's out of UCLA. There's this great model of the brain with your hand, like using your hand to model the brain. And I think the first thing that when young people are experiencing anxiety, we need to teach them that they're not bad and it's not like who they are, that it's just this reaction they're having in their brain. So to separate them from the anxiety. That
right.
makes sense.
That's an experience you're having. It doesn't mean you're bad or worse or embarrassing.
Exactly, like this, and this is how it happens. So because I think for me was, for so long I didn't know what was happening to me or why it was happening to me. I'm like, I'm just crazy, and that's like the worst feeling.
It's freaky.
Right.
It's scary. The experience itself is scary.
It's super scary because you're out of control. You feel like
the teacher probably gets scared in a way. They're like, I don't know what to do. I don't have time for this.
Right, and we work with really great teachers, but sometimes they'll say like, well, I just knew to like sit on the floor with them. I think that's amazing too, just to sit with someone and show that you care.
Right.
And not also when someone's having anxiety, not be worried that the other person is having anxiety, because that just makes that person experiencing
just
anxiety.
say, it's okay.
Right.
I'm here with you.
Right. And that's
breathe.
The first step.
Just saying maybe just breathe.
And that could be triggering too. It can be angry, being like, because like when you're young, like, I can't breathe that. Like,
well, it's sort of how you say it. It's not like, breathe, you idiot.
Yeah.
But it's like, just
breathe.
Yeah, because that's what happens when I go through something. You like forget to breathe, kind of. You're like,
no.
It's like in yoga when you're breathing through a tough
pose.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's softening, right? Like I think it's all about your presence. So if you're with someone who's experiencing anxiety, it's not being soft. It's being soft. It's not being scared. It's being like.
Oh, such good advice for ourselves. How you deal with yourself.
Right.
Maybe when you're an adult.
Yeah, it's being soft and gentle and not scared of what's happening.
So what's ahead for you? What's next? I mean, you've already accomplished and been of so much benefit. And you're, how old are you?
22.
22.
Yeah.
So you're just going to retire now?
No,
yeah.
No, that'd be pretty boring.
Just coast off the good karma?
Yeah, no, there's more karma to be worked through. But so my goal is to continue bringing asset to more schools. I think it's important that we put students' well-being at the forefront of their education, and that we need to be teaching mindfulness and positive psychology in academic classes.
So in a national climate where politically, the tax plan was just nearly cutting CHIP, which is basic healthcare for children,
right.
We're no longer in a place where nationally we might be funding mindfulness training, stress, happiness, training for children in schools. How do you accomplish this? Is it all through donors?
Oh, yeah. So fundraising is an initiative of mine.
And that's a whole skill and path.
If it's something that is anxiety for me is fundraising. is asking people, but Eric, are discussing this, and then I call it brokering impact. That's what I'm doing. I'm not asking people for money. I'm saying we're going to make our communities better and of well-being and equip these students with tools they can use for life. that's
Right.
what matters. So we do have schools pay for assets. So we've been set up like matching grants. So we'll have donors like pay for half, and the school will pay for half, and that's really nice because from the school lens, it's saying we're invested in this. Like this is important, and we're going to put we're going to allocate some of our budget towards this, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And so if anyone wants to donate, they can go to
Asset's website, asset-edu.org, and then there's a donate.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Tessa, thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure. Yeah.
And thank you, Sophie Miller, who made this happen.
Sophie.
Yeah, we love you, Sophie.
Yeah, Sophie's my agent for bringing amazing interviews in. So a couple more comments and then we can wrap up. Let's see. So Catherine, just checking out the book online, looks great. A good Xmas gift for my son who is away at college. Congrats. Lindsay has a question. What do you think about technology and anxiety, the relationship between the two? I mean, we kind of touched on that with social media, but
I think it's triggering, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's not, you numb out, right? So I think technology is actually a way to numb out from anxiety. Is to
not in a helpful way.
No, you're not working.
You can get away from. It's like entertainment.
Right.
You just get away from it,
but
you don't. But it's still there.
Exactly. So you're numbing through, right? You're like, I don't feel good right now, so I'm gonna go look on Instagram and scroll through that.
I feel bad about what I'm not doing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not. I think technology is actually a way to easy button out of the anxiety. It's not a way to actually work through it.
Right. It's funny. I used to get pretty depressed when I was in college for a year or two. It was interesting, and we didn't have Instagram and all that at the time, but we had TV. Good old TV.
Yeah.
And I would watch ridiculous, stupid stuff that I didn't even care about in the moment, all day, and eat awful food or whatever, and just feel worse and worse and worse and worse.
It is. I mean, it's hard to work through stuff, right? It's not really easy to say oh, I'm not feeling great, and I'm going to choose mindfulness right now. That's not normally how we go about doing it. It takes a lot of courage to say I'm going to not participate and do something else rather than numb out. It's very easy to.
And it's not willpower.
No.
Willpower is never strong enough.
No, it's courage. I think it's courage.
So what is courage?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Because it's not, willpower has a level of almost perfectionism. I need to be doing this. God, it's almost aggression, but it's not strong enough. It's not.
Courage is showing up to me. So to me, what's showing up, and I say this a lot because I think running a nonprofit at 22 years old is really hard. It is not easy. I make mistakes. It's uncomfortable.
Oh my God.
Learning as I go. It's really a community.
I was a train wreck in a fun way.
Yeah, I know.
But at 22, I could not have been doing this.
No, thank you. It's tough, but one of my friends and I, we talk about showing up, and showing up to me is courage. It's saying I am scared. I might not feel well, but I'm going to show up as best as I possibly can. It doesn't matter what that best is or what level is, but I'm going to be present. I'm going to try. So
it's very similar to vulnerability. Yes. You're willing to feel inadequate and still show up.
Right. That's exactly it. You're willing to say that I may not feel perfect. I may be scared. This may be really tough, but all I can do is be my authentic self and show up how I feel right now and give it my all.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I have an article open, not to be political. I respect the Republicans. My father's Republican, but the Trump administration just banned the word vulnerable in government reports.
Oh.
Yeah, they banned transgender, they banned fetus, they banned vulnerable, they banned, it's the list of words is insane. I think this is a democracy. I thought it was. Great question, Lindsay. Rachel, who's she does Elephant Academy, which is our training school, and Lindsay went to nutrition school together.
Yeah,
Small world. Mariana is asking, any workshop for parents around the country?
Ooh.
How can people connect with you?
So my personal website is called iamtessa.com, title of the book. That's a way to reach out. I think the book is a really great tool for parents. Because it gets them to understand what their children are experiencing. I have parents come up to me all the time and be like, I have no idea. But this makes a lot more sense of what it feels like to be their child. And I think that's the first step. And these tools are kind of a way to also have a dialogue with your child about, like, here's something we can do.
Yeah.
So I think that would be
together.
Right.
Which is kind of bonding.
It's powerful.
Yeah. All right, Violet, thank you. I need this for my kids. Lizeth, how to motivate your schools to include mindfulness. So yeah, in their curriculum. So if you're a parent, what can you do to get your school to
like advocate for it? I think it's really hard, right? So one of the things that we're doing, which is really culturally different, is we're saying we're going to put mindfulness in academic classes. We do this very intentionally with high school students because we've tried asset in elective classes, and sometimes that works, but for the most part, they see it as a joke, right? They'll be like, oh, we're putting it in this elective class. It's not that important.
Right.
But if you're saying,
doesn't matter.
Right, this is just like nice job.
Right.
We're putting it in U.S. history, like AP U.S. history, and we're saying we're going to do mindfulness and take time out of prepping for the AP test, that this is just as important.
So you inject it into the classes.
Right, but and I give teachers who use assets curriculum a tremendous amount of credit because they are taking time out of their lessons.
So any teacher could do it.
Right, you would go up to any teacher in the school that we like train the teachers at the school in the curriculum, and then we give them the curriculum.
So the schools don't have to give permission though, necessarily.
Well, they do.
They do.
I think like with administration buy-in, right, that's really important. Like, because you want to say like a cultural shift, right? You want to say that like we're committed to using this.
Right. So you do need, it sounds like you do need to work with the principal, the administration of whatever school.
I think if you want systemic change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the thing that we've learned, but through Asset, is that it's great. It can be an island, though, in a classroom. And if you really want to change students' learning experience and you want to change the culture of the school, this needs to be a language and dialogue that everyone is engaging in. But that's hard. Yeah. So what we do is we train just a group of teachers at the school so that each student is getting it at least once a week. So that might be 3 teachers, that might be 5 teachers, that might be the entire staff. It depends on what the school needs. But I do say that teachers can start. There's great apps too, like there's like Headspace and Calm.com. And so even if a teacher might not feel like I'm ready to lead like mindfulness, they can play this app and they can go play meditation from these apps, and I think that's really powerful, and then participate with students because it shows that they need it just as much as the students do as well. Yeah,
and I'll give a shout out to Shambhala Sun Camp, which is a camp I did my whole childhood, which is like a mindfulness camp for children that's actually fun.
Keyword.
Yeah, and that's we have an article on Shambhala Sun Camp on Elephant, and also I want to recommend, so when we were talking about technology and anxiety, I wrote a blog, what has worked for me for everyday. I talked about everyday depression, but getting offline and it's all common sense stuff. Going for a walk in nature, so we could put that in the comments. My mom had the old school way to relieve stress in children: put them behind a lawnmower. Just some exercise. I mean, but that is focus again.
Well, we have in Asset, like some of our lesson plans are movement based. So some of them are like physical, like activities because
Sun Camp too, like a lot of it's just physical.
Right, because it's like for the kinesthetic learner, right?
Yeah.
So you need that.
Yeah, I went to a Buddhist inspired school growing up, and we did things like Japanese archery. We did a lot of meditation in action is what it's called. Flower arranging, all kinds of things. Lawn mowing professionally. Schools in my hometown are using HeartMath.
Yes, that's awesome.
Okay. Do you want to explain what that is?
I don't know too much about it, but I do know, like, my mindfulness teacher uses it.
Okay, Angie Nash, my daughter's class uses kids yoga, cosmic yoga on YouTube. They use it in the mornings, and if they are too wild and the energy is too high. Tony, what happens when they hit the jungle of real life and nobody has the time or inclination to rub their back? Can I answer that?
Yeah.
So Tony, what I would say is, this is not like sensitive training that doesn't apply to the real world. This is training for people to be able to work under pressure with themselves. So it's actually pretty practical. This isn't like, I'm not saying I haven't had enough coffee, but this isn't happy hippy dippy stuff. This is like,
no, this is like
practical.
Like what type? So we have former CEOs that are adjuncts, And I think they fund this program because they see that these are the type of people that we want to have in our workforce. We want them to be able to respond to stress and not have it debilitate.
Right. I mean, firefighters go through stress, and stress is just a fact of life.
Right. And why we call them tools is because we want them to be able to do it on their own. They don't need someone's help once they learn this tool, that they can do it on
So it helps
their own.
make them independent.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But great question. Angie, I think kids are encouraged to learn how to manage stress and cope with emotions like anxiety. I think that conversation starts with learning to breathe and give your feelings names. Then, like, that reminds me of Mr. Rogers a bit. Then finding things that work for them, conversations we didn't have as a generation back then. Yeah, so
absolutely.
It actually can be empowering, you know.
Absolutely.
Allison, ideas about help for my friend who has a kid who is autistic.
We don't work with autistic kids.
Yeah, we have some resources, Allison, on Elephant. If you search autism, that's obviously a huge and important conversation.
Absolutely.
Rachel, that's the whole point. They won't need anyone to rub their back because they'll have the tools to create that for themselves. Fair enough, from Tony. All right. I think we've tortured you long enough.
No, thank you.
You were wonderful and delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This was a huge audience for a subject that isn't, you know, social media sexy, but really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm doing another interview in an hour, so stick around.